interesting was with Eminence Shadow recently. I don't know if you guys have watched Eminence and Shadow. No, it's like, Shadow Garden or whatever the fuck.
I know what it is. Yeah.
Before the show had even finished airing, like I think like maybe a third of the way through its second core, Crunchyroll had already gotten and was promoting release of a mobile gacha game for it. So the show hadn't even finished.
Yeah.
And they already had a gacha game ready to go out the door. It was like, it was honestly impressive, I think. Like I downloaded it and I started playing it, and it was just basically, it was using like inside of the game, they had scenes that they had recreated from the anime that were done in like a 3D mocap kind of style, like Genshin Impact almost. But the level of production that they ended up putting into it definitely leads me to believe that it was premeditated,
a coordinated effort. Yeah. I wonder, there's probably other examples of that. I just can't really think of any off the top of my head where you have like the anime's airing and then there's like something else in the franchise that's happening at the same time. I'm trying to think. Well,
so what did you call this? Shadow Gardener?
Eminence and Shadow.
So it's like the gacha game about like gardening tools. Like
no.
You gather hose and
no.
Honestly, the premise of the anime makes sense for a gacha game.
It does. It really does.
Do you know what it is?
But it's definitely
So what you're saying is the guy in Eminence of Shadow has no hose.
No, he has all the hose.
He has all the hose.
He is a gardener.
I mean, it's called Shadow Garden. It's a garden of shadows.
Shadow Garden, not the Shadow Gardener.
Well, I mean, the show's not called Shadow Garden. That's just his thing in the show. It's actually Eminence of Shadow. He has this organization.
It's not about a guy who goes out in the dead of night and does people's lawns.
This bit sucks.
You fucking suck. Fuck you.
I'm trying to humor you, Mumi, but it's hard. I can't shit post this hard. I've reached the limit of my ability.
You want to just like get into it now and just do the intro?
Welcome to the Weeb Crew
Hello,
Podcast.
And welcome to the Weeb Crew.
Oh God, it's so good to be here. I'm so happy. It's been a long time coming.
Wait, who's this guy? Who's this guy on the TV?
I just showed up again. I found out how to get in yesterday, and now
he broke into our house, and now he's here. Now he's on the TV somehow.
Well, the great thing is we're gonna acknowledge he's on the TV, and then Sai gets to cut this part from the audio because he's not on a TV.
Okay, movie.
I mean, I could do that.
People on Spotify are very confused.
Yeah,
listening to this in their car.
They have like the visual aid. Oh God, we're the kind of
cut that.
I don't actually
cut that for now.
Yeah, how does that work for like podcasts that are like on camera and stuff, and they have like things going on camera? Are you just meant to like infer what the hell is going on like Spotify?
I mean, Spotify has a video ops.
Is this a video? Interesting.
Oh yeah, I guess it does, but that would wreak havoc on my cell phone data, I suppose. I never keep that enabled.
Yeah, Joe Rogan does his stuff on video. I've never uploaded our stuff there on video though, because it'd be a waste of time. Yeah. Movie Isai. We got with us today Smuggler.
Good to be here.
Everyone's favorite first-hand information.
It's really funny.
How to encode videos.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's one of those things where like I find I get quoted a lot when really I'm just quoting William Chow already. So just go watch William Chow's stuff and you'll be able to figure it out.
Check that off. William Chow has been mentioned on the Weeb Crew.
Oh man, in record time.
Take a shot.
We have more than likely done this once an episode since he's been on.
That man needs more love. That man needs more love. I don't care how much he's getting, but it's never enough. Okay, God bless his kindred spirit.
We need to make a Weeb Crew drinking game. Every time William Chow's mentioned, take a shot.
Take a shot. It's like a bingo chart.
Yeah, the William Crew bingo
is the free space in the middle.
But yeah, I've found at least 2 videos where they have cited you. And I tagged you and I was like, hey, look, Smuggler in the wild. But
That
It's
blows
just
my
fucking
mind.
weird.
That blows my mind so much because my channel is such like a drop in the bucket that and it's not just you either. I've ran into just random places and corners of the internet, and I've had people ask me, it's like, are you the smuggler? And I'm like, yes.
Who's asking?
Like
that is my Discord name.
It's my username everywhere because nobody ever takes it. So I just, that's just what I always go into things as. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh, I love your videos. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, oh, that's awesome. It's like, then why did you subscribe, you dick? Okay. If everybody who told me they like my videos subscribed to my channel, I'd have subscribers.
I have at least 3 subs.
Right? But here I am. I guess just getting quote tweeted in everybody else's video, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. If some random person came up to me like, "Oh man, are you the smuggler?" I'd be like, "This dude's a fed."
Yeah, like great. Like, am I getting honeypotted right now? Like, is that
what do you want me to smuggle exactly?
Oh god, it's like the Truman Show.
That's it.
Yeah.
My whole life is a lie.
Basically.
Although I do get that question a lot. It's like, what do you smuggle? LOL. And I never know how to answer that question.
And you're just like drugs.
Yeah.
What are you fed?
Drugs.
That's how you answer the question.
Actually, no. Okay, that's a good one. Next time somebody asks me that, that's what I'll have to come back at them with. Because honestly, the answer I give is never as interesting as the answer that they have in their head already. So I just inevitably end up disappointing them. And that's honestly the worst thing for me. Definitely the source of my crippling performance anxiety.
I don't want to be a disappointment, Mom.
So it's interesting. So a little bit of, I think we talked about it we had Hayden on. We originally kind of were talking about doing this. We were thinking there was gonna be like 3 people. We ended up going with the format we do have. Interesting bit of tidbit information is I'm pretty sure you were the first person to ask if I wanted to do a podcast.
Yeah, I think I was. That was before you guys started it too. I was like, man, it would be really cool if we did a podcast. Like, because I forget what we were talking about.
I was talking to somebody in VC or at some point, like a friend of mine, and like this random person. I think you had a Miyazaki avatar at the time. You changed it a few times. But it was like a smiley, I think it was just Miyazaki where you had like the smiling Miyazaki face or whatever. You just like joined and we were talking, and then, like at some point you're like, wait, does anyone want to start an anime podcast? But you're like, you're asking me, and then you're asking like a friend of mine who like doesn't fucking watch anime at all. Yeah, bro. I was just doing an anime. I'm like, what the? Shut the fuck up! You don't even watch it.
He's just roping you into it. I'm pretty sure I was blasted when I hopped into that call too, so I like barely remembered it the day after. But I think part of that comes from my experience, because I've always had friends who have kind of been like, I'd say diet weebs, like they're into the seasonals occasionally. And we get to talking about some stuff sometimes. Some of them read a lot of manga or manhwa. And then they're always like, man, we could totally make a podcast episode about this. And I'm like, that'd be great. So like, here's all the things we're going to need to do. Here's the mics you're going to want to buy. Here's like how we're going to edit it. And then I never hear anything back. And that's like the extent of my podcasting adventures, at least in the last half a decade or so.
Well, I have a very normie friend who, whenever I hang out with him, we usually hang out with like his old roommates and like old coworkers and stuff he's friends with. And they're always talking about just like random shit, like Always Sunny, like they're always making Always Sunny references and shit like that. And then they'll be like, yo, this conversation we were having would make such a great podcast. And I'm always, when people say that,
everyone says that, and then they like actually try to record for a podcast and it goes miserably.
Yeah, like even if you record that conversation is not halfway as interesting as you think it is at the moment when you're just talking. Like, it is a very different skill set. I can say this from experience now, having done this for a little bit. Mm-hmm. This is a very different skill set, having to have a conversation and be entertaining, than it is to just be hanging out with your bros in a fucking basement and just shit talking about fucking the One Piece live action fucking adaptation on Netflix. Like, these are They're not the same thing. Like, no one's gonna listen to you and your friends who don't know you and your friends and be like, this is really riveting and interesting.
Yeah, right. I think it's one of those things because the conversation that you're having, like, of course you think it's the most interesting thing in the world because you're having it. It's your conversation. If you didn't give a shit, you wouldn't be talking about it. So, you get a bunch of people who all think the same way sitting around, and all of a sudden it's just like, they're playing the cracker game, like circle jerking off on, who's going to be the next Joe Rogan. It very rarely ends up panning out that way.
Yeah, that's just like the cultural thing to do. Is be like, this would be such a good podcast, man. If we
you have stuff like I feel like that might also be due to stuff like Come Town, where it's like, it's I think
fuck is Come Town.
Do you know what Come Town is?
I don't know what Come Town is.
So Come Town is probably the lowest effort to highest return project in the history of Patreon, because it was more or less what like Mumi described, where it's just like a group of friends who, to be fair, they're all already good at like public speaking and stuff because they're like comedians working in New York City. But it was basically just that. They literally would just hit record, talk for an hour, and then hit stop recording. And then that would basically, and then they just made thousands of dollars just doing that. Like, well,
if they're already like comedians, then I guess you're basically like New Game Plus at that point. Like, are you really like new at podcasting? Like, I don't know if it's not 1-to-1, but you're pretty close.
No, if you're doing something that involves like public speaking or something like that, you're already like done 90% of the work you're already podcast.
Like, right. Yeah, you're already like set, at least partially, for like this kind of thing.
I don't know if like you ran into that when you started making your videos, but that's like, I would say that is the largest hurdle, is like finding a way to be entertaining like naturally, because like listening to your voice when you're editing is like the worst fucking thing in the world when you first start.
Oh my God, I know. I'm like, man, I remember, because, so the first video I made was the Macross Guide video. It was on
that was Macross. Your first.
That was my first. Yeah, so it's like, because I started, I was new. I was a new fledgling weeb, and I had I was going to college for business administration management at the time, and they gave everybody this Microsoft Surface Pro tablet. It was kind of a scam, honestly. I ended up having to pay for it later, but it had the App Store, the Windows 8 App Store, and it had this anime app. It was basically like the greatest anime pirate website I have ever seen, and it was hard locked on the Microsoft Surface tablet store.
And they call it Kiss Anime.
No, it wasn't Kiss Anime. I can't remember what it was called. It was some like I haven't seen it. I can't find it for the fucking life of me. But it was honestly brilliant. But it didn't have like new and trending and everything. It just had every anime ever made organized by alphabetical order, and that was the only way you could go through it.
Was there at least like a search option?
No. You could search by letter. You know, if you wanted to go to a letter.
Oh, thank God.
Are you sure this was like an anime app and this wasn't just like you accessing someone's fucking
I don't know, man. Yeah, it could have been. It had like a nice interface and thumbnails and everything like that. It kind of looked like a Plex server almost, but this would have been well before Plex was really fleshed out and integrated in the way that it is today. So like, because it was organized in alphabetical order, that influenced my early experiences with anime. Like all of my favorite shows are like Batum and Clannad and Black Bullet.
So
and
all things like towards the top of the alphabet.
They're like close, like A to Z. And then as I kept working my way down, like eventually, the first time I watched Sword Art Online was on this tablet, and I went into the thing completely fucking dry. Like, I had no idea if people were talking about it or if it was popular. This might have been like a year or two after it finished airing. And I was just like, man, this is the coolest shit ever. I love this. Man, people are in video games, they're getting killed. This is like the Matrix, but it's like anime, man. And then from there, I was fucking sold. That was like a decade ago.
Then you started doing YouTube stuff and you saw the video shitting on fucking Sword Art Online. You're like, God damn.
I was like,
was a lie this whole time.
Right. I was like, man, like Beatrice at the time just red pilled me on anime, and suddenly there was like this existential crisis I was having. Like, oh god, do I like Sword Art Online? Am I an idiot?
Am I the other?
Are we the baddies, guys? And then the answer we later found out is no.
No, and now I'm here watching Mushoku Tensei, and I'm kind of like, I'm sitting on the other side of the fence now, and I'm like, okay, like let's look at this for a second.
Back
But
up.
yeah. But yeah, in the course of that, eventually I got to the letter M, and that was Macross, because that's first on the letter M. I was like, oh yes, yeah. Started watching Macross, and I could not figure out what the fuck was going on, because there's Macross 0, there's Macross Plus. There's 7, there's Frontier, there's Delta. I think Delta was just about to start at that point, maybe a little bit afterwards.
My tried and true alphabetical order is failing me.
Yeah, so like I just listed the
watch order.
I just listed the actual watch order as it is, but when I first got into it, I hadn't the slightest fucking clue. So I was very confused when I hopped into Frontier, and there was a lot of words and stuff, and then I kind of started looking into it, and I'm like, man, it's crazy. There's like this Harmony Gold thing and this Robotech thing, and then there's all of this stuff, and they're airing them they're making them out of chronological order, and 0 is a prequel, and I'm like, man, that's pretty confusing, and it would be cool if there was a video that just explained that to me. So that was kind of what led me to record my first video, which was the Macross video, and that thing was fully scripted, and I recorded it on a pair of earphones, like cell phone earbuds.
Oh yeah. You know, like basically what you see on TikTok nowadays.
I was a proto TikTok. I was 10 years early.
You're the one responsible then.
Like, you can blame me for all of our transgressions. Yes,
that's what you're really smuggling.
Yeah, and then it kind of went from there. I've always been like, YouTube's always been kind of like something that I've just done when I find something in my regular life that I find interesting, and I kind of want to share with other people. And I think that's partially why my upload schedule is so categorically fucked at this point. Like, I might find something cool that, like, it's one of those things, going back to the podcasting thing, you always think your ideas are interesting. So anytime I have a new idea, I'm always sitting down and I'm like, is this actually interesting, or do I just kind of think it is? And would it be worth me, wasting people's time talking about it? And usually once every 6 months, I kind of have an idea like that. And then that's kind of where I go. Although what'll end up happening is I'll make a video, I'll have an idea, and it'll usually take me about 6 months to finish formulating that and kind of building it. Like a lot of the stuff, like the going back and forth with William Chow and kind of watching his stuff for the subtitling video, and then having to get the equipment and kind of figure out how it all works, and then formatting in a way to explain it. That actually took me 6 months to do. Between finding the appropriate stuff on eBay, like, because I had to buy the Sony mixer on eBay, get it shipped in. I had to do, testing and figure out how like analog video chains worked. Kind of fucking around and finding out, for lack of a better term. And then the hentai video was kind of the same thing that I posted recently. But that was a bit more like abstract, I suppose, where I was just kind of like, it took me a long time to get my hentai knowledge up to the point where I could draw parallels between advancements in, analog video technology and the Japanese economy and, the broader trends inside of the hentai industry. Like, that just took me, I've been sitting on that idea for like a year. It just took me a really long time to put it into words and kind of get it out there in a format that people might actually want to watch.
So you're saying you had to do a lot of research?
Yeah, there was a fair
hentai.
bit. There was, a
lot of.
You can't be making this joke given the episode that came out like like twice before this one.
Twice before this one.
Yeah.
There's no time frame for when it was released.
I guess
it just came out 2 episodes ago.
Yes.
But we kind of run into the opposite issue where like we have a lot of shit we want to talk about. We have a lot of ideas, and we just are running into the wall.
You guys have so much on the back burner right now. God, you're like pushing into 2024.
Yeah. Oh, and then we've got Pluto, and maybe we'll talk about Uzumaki.
Yeah, that's not even including all the shit that's coming out.
Pilgrim, new Fooly.
Oh yeah, I guess the Scott Pilgrim anime is coming out.
What we're saying is, if you feel like you could edit together like one of our like normal videos, hit us up.
If you're okay with it looking like this, I mean, I could give it a go. It would just be.
We will pay you. It might not be much, but we will pay you.
You just get you edit together, and you just get you and your friend to just mouth everything we're saying in live action.
Yes.
Live action Weeb Crew adaptation. That's how.
Yeah, dude. You avoid copyright and you carve your niche out in one fell swoop. You know, that'd be it. I feel like YouTubers in general kind of maybe I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like a lot of people take themselves too seriously. So I feel like if people had more fun with the things that they were making, we would have a lot more novelty, I suppose, inside of the creative kind of, sphere. Like how many anime videos do we have where people are, talking outside on a park bench, about their anime? I'd like to see that.
Grumpy G-san?
I guess the Senate clinic, he'll like go outside. I don't think
he's not on a park bench.
Yeah, I don't think
he's not.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily like people take themselves too seriously. I think it's that there's a lot of people when they first kind of get into it, that's kind of the content that they see, right? Because like I could speak from like at least my experience when I made my first video. I didn't take direct inspiration from anybody in how I like edited the video together, but that's kind of just how it generally was in like a vague kind of nebulous sense. So like my video, it probably kind of just seems like a weird amalgamation of like whatever kind of videos you would have been seeing around that time, maybe.
Yeah. Whereas you can vary with my like 2 videos, you can very clearly tell who I'm ripping off.
Well, now you can tell who we're ripping off.
Oh yeah. Oh God.
The Weeb Crew shit, that's very transparent. My stuff personally was not quite as transparent, at least. But yeah, I think it's more like when people just start making videos, they don't really know how to kind of approach it. So they kind of just fall into some certain kind of categories.
And there's not really until you find yourself like
they know they want to make videos, but they don't know what kind of videos they want to make yet, really.
Yeah. Whereas like once you start making videos for a while, you kind of find your own creative voice.
Yeah.
And so it's easier to kind of branch out and distinguish yourself from other people because you're like, man, I don't want to be like when you're trying to grow your channel, you start trying to distinguish yourself from other people. And so it's like, I don't want to be just putting out the same shit that Giguk is. So you kind of start taking inspiration from other places and you kind of form your own style or whatever in that way. I think we're kind of in a unique niche with that since I mean, we're taking basically like for our videos at least, we're taking basically like podcast kind of formats. I'm editing it into like a cohesive sort of 20-minute-ish video.
Like a hybridization between like a podcast or like roundtable discussion and a like video essay essentially is what it's come to be.
Yeah. It's kind of it gives an interesting kind of presentation style.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm aware, is like unique, and the people I've shown it to is like they seem to think that the like video benefits from that sort of style. So
I find it's interesting because it's your guys' stuff at least is a lot more concise. It's like it's a nice middle ground between kind of shooting the shit, but also not like self-flagellation where you guys are sitting around.
It's because we cut out so much of what we talk about.
You guys are curating those moments as you're kind of organically moving through them, which lends itself to some spontaneous like interactions between you and especially the co-hosts that you have on and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of
one thing we've definitely learned is that we can no longer trust documentaries implicitly because we figured out it is incredibly easy to just construct a conversation that never actually happened.
Yeah. Like what was our most recent video? Isekai Oji-san. We actually all hated that show. And I just made it to where we all loved it.
It was really insane how you'd managed to do that.
Really? Yeah, I watched that video. I thought you guys really liked it.
It's one of the worst anime I've ever seen, honestly.
I was like, kind of like, well, I mean, okay, no. There was a couple of points where I'm like, I just thought you guys were stupid. Like, I was like, really? Like, they think that about Isekai Oji-san? I mean, it's like, it was kind of like,
there's a weird cut there.
my bullshit antenna was like going off, but it wasn't quite enough. So you guys had me fooled anyways. I mean, and I'm sure
everyone got duped.
Yeah, that was it. And everybody's like, oh, I mean, but man, that's such a mean trick to play. The comment section will be like, people like, man, I really like the Isekai Oji-san too. And they're just sitting there like, ha, you idiot.
They have been deceived. We trolled them.
Yeah, we managed to get all of the Isekai Oji-san lovers to out themselves. Now we know
we probably could actually do that if we wanted to. Like just like completely, we talk about something and then you just completely misrepresent the conversation through clever editing tricks.
It would not be that hard.
It would not be that hard. Well, our point is, do not trust Michael Moore.
You talked about how kind of is that how you got into anime, is with your little Microsoft Edge app?
Well,
would you say that's kind of how you got into it?
Yeah, that was a weird time in my life. So I was going to college at the time and I was doing a bunch of other stuff and I kind of burnt out. But on top of burning out, I crashed my car. Like, I rolled it over. So I lost my car. I was working as like a delivery driver and I was traveling a lot for work. So I lost my job when I lost my car.
Damn, Canada sounds very fucking dangerous up there.
Man,
there's like sirens in someone's mic right now.
Yeah, that's actually.
I thought Canada was supposed to be safe.
Yeah, no, the place I live, oh buddy, I'm actually getting ready for a move right now, so I won't be here much longer. But yeah, this neighborhood ain't good. It's not a good neighborhood. I shouldn't have all these LaserDiscs here, except
now we really know why they call you the smuggler.
That's it. But anyways, yeah. So there's a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. And I kind of just like shut down for a while. Like, I didn't really leave my house for a period of like several months. I kind of became like a shut-in. Not like full hiki, but you know, it was weird. And then I had that tablet and I just started watching through anime. And eventually I just kind of like, I don't know, I just sat there and I just watched anime until I kind of got over my shit. And then one day I just went outside, I got a job, and that was like,
touch grass?
Like, yeah, basically. It just, you know, I mean, I guess it's kind of a cliche, like looking, I think maybe even yesterday you guys were talking about like anime for self-improvement. But in my case, I just felt like anime was just like a nice way to kind of get away from the bullshit that I was actually dealing with, you know, because there wasn't a way for me to escape that. But you know, going into something like anime, you know, it wasn't live action, so I could completely disassociate with my current situations. But compared to Western cartoons, it could deal with a much more diverse range of topics. You know, I mean, like, I don't know though. A lot of the shows that I watched early where I was like, man, this is wild, were like Batum. Oh my God, that's my phone going off.
Wait, you have a phone?
Right. Let me
I thought you would have like one of those like car phones, like the big like antenna,
a carrier pigeon.
Yeah, it's just a CB radio.
Hold on, guys. I'm getting a telegraph.
I'm getting the punch card starts printing out, and I have to read it. Sorry about that.
The old fucking stock market tickers.
But yeah, I think I think part of that was what kind of shaped my tastes moving forward and what got me into the niche that I am right now, which is like the laser discs and the VHS tapes and the more retro side of things. It's because I started watching media with like a strict disregard for whatever anybody else happened to be watching. You know, I wasn't into the topical shows that were happening at the time. I was just kind of watching whatever I thought looked interesting. And I've always been like really into old sci-fi and like romantic dramas and stuff like that. So I naturally ended up gravitating towards the older shows, even before I really started to understand that there was a distinction between new and old anime. To me at the time, it was all just Japanese cartoons.
It's all in alphabetical order.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I was like, oh my God, that we're on to E now. Oh, what's going on here? Yeah.
Evangelion? What is this?
Don't even get me started on Ava. Okay, Ava ruined anime. Hot take. Okay.
We'll agree. We'll agree to disagree.
Okay. Well, then I'm happy you're okay with being wrong, Mumi. But, we'll leave it at that.
We will still eventually do an Evangelion episode that we talked about. What was that, like episode 2 when we had Kai on?
Oh yeah, we did talk about doing like rebuild episode podcast.
Yeah,
but no, so it's interesting because like that seems like a pretty common kind of experience. I don't like not everybody like goes through a point where they're like not doing any, like they kind of become a hickey or anything like that. But like that is a kind of common experience where a lot of people seem to get into anime when they go like off to college. I think we might have talked about that where it's, I guess maybe there's like this element of when you go off on your own of like just trying to find yourself in a way, like you're not intermingling with like your old kind of circles and social circles, stuff like that. So maybe you're just trying to find yourself. Anime is a way for you to do that.
College is a time to explore both your sexuality and the kind of media you consume.
I think some of that might be survivor's bias, though, if that makes sense. Because
could be.
At least when we're all sitting around and we're talking, and the people that you talk to, like we've all been weebs for fucking years, decades in certain cases.
Yeah.
You know, I imagine the more common experience is, they like, because the average person who watches anime is like, what, 3-4 years before they kind of burn out and move on?
I think it's like 6 months. Like,
really?
Isn't there like literature that said it's like 6 months is the average lifespan of an anime fan?
No, holy shit.
maybe that's different now just because Anime 1 is a lot more popular than it used to be. And I think you don't necessarily need to always be watching anime nowadays. It can literally just be something that you, like, I don't know. I'd imagine a lot of people watched anime during the pandemic. They've been watching like anime off and on just because it's on Netflix or whatever, right. And they'll probably watch the goddamn like Scott Pilgrim anime, or maybe they watch like Cyberpunk or something like that.
Yeah, I guess
it's not like,
I guess
it kind of just becomes incorporated into people's like general media diet or whatever.
I guess it kind of goes like harkens back to the whole conversation that they had back in like 2010s with like, what is a real gamer? Are you a true gamer if you play Angry Birds?
There's no true Scotsman, the no true Scotsman fallacy or whatever it is.
Yeah,
meanwhile, I've literally just been playing mobile games this entire time we've been talking.
Well, yeah, and then it's just like, what was it? The statistics about, the early statistics about female gamers. And then it was like, but 80% of them were on mobile. And then all the neckbeards were like, that's not gaming.
You're not a real gamer.
Yeah, a real gamer plays it would have been Elder Scrolls back then, I guess.
There's another thing as well where it's like, I'd imagine a lot of people started watching anime during the pandemic, during lockdowns, and then when the lockdowns ended, they just stopped watching anime.
Yeah. What I find most interesting about that, though, is because there's such like a high turnaround for the average weeboo. The general, the things that Annie-tubers and, content creators in the sphere tend to talk about is almost cyclical. Like it almost has a life cycle. I've been noticing more and more as I'm moving forward that shows that I watched videos about 5 years ago are now getting talked about again. And the talking points from these new guys that are coming into it are almost the exact same as it was 5 years ago. It's just with like a new coat of paint on it. It's like this video was edited in 2023. But for the large part, like these people are still coming in brand new to all of this anime. The back catalog's even bigger than when it was when I had that stupid little Microsoft Edge app. It's like there's just so much to absorb and go into. So I think too there's a lot of shows that to us might seem like cultural mainstays as far as like anime is concerned. Like I don't know, stuff like Clannad. Not so much Ava. Everybody knows about Ava, but there's some other shows that are a bit more.
Well, like I guess like an example would be like between right now at time of recording and when ReZero came out, it would be about the same amount of time between when I started watching anime and when Gurren Lagann came out.
Oh man, yeah.
So if you like are someone who started watching anime. Also, yeah, that's a fucking horrible thing to think about.
I'm so old. I remember watching ReZero weekly.
There we go. There's your next bingo thing. We feel old.
Right.
I mean, if it helps, makes you feel any better, Smuggler. when he said that, I have like almost no context because like both of those things like it's like when I got into anime, Gurren Lagann was only like 3 years old, 4 years old at that point.
Right? Yeah. It's just like holy shit.
I was like, what's the big deal?
Yeah. Whereas like when I was getting into anime back in like 2013, 2014, Gurren Lagann was like this like, you know, bona fide classic show. And I'm wondering, are people getting into anime now? Are they thinking the same thing about like ReZero or Konosuba?
Or maybe they haven't heard about it yet. And that's the thing. So like you could, in theory, make a video on ReZero exposing the gospel of the REM confession scene and totally blow people's minds away because they just haven't heard of it yet. Because you got to think like there are people, who were 13 when ReZero started who are now able to vote. It's like it's kind of one of those things. So like,
because it's like, so I always think of it like, even stuff like 2013 getting into anime. You hear about a show like Kaiba or something like that.
Kaiba,
and that'd probably be like a lesser known like show to you at that point. Whereas maybe when it was airing, not really the case. Maybe it was more talked about. I guess like a more modern example then would be people getting into anime now. You hear about something like Rakugo Shinju as like this sort of like hidden gem or whatever. Whereas I can remember when Rakugo Shinju was airing and people talking about it. So the idea that it's like some sort of like hidden classic to me is a strange idea.
Yeah, it's just something that I watched and I thought was good. Like how do you not know about this already kind of thing? And it's like, oh, you're just a little late to the party.
I mean, I can even get that to an extent where it's like, because like I'll watch like independent like anime, like 3 to 5 minute like shorts made by like one person put onto YouTube. And the way I'll go about like watching them is I'll like search it up and I will sort by like most recent, or I'll look at stuff uploaded in like the last day or week or month. And usually when I'm doing that, these videos have very, very few views. And then I'll see them again like a month or two later and they've got like 100,000 plus views. And I'm like, holy fuck, this.
And everybody's sitting around, this is so underrated. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I'm just here like I watched it before it was cool. All right.
Goddamn hipster.
Yeah. So taking that concept into the next extreme, we can kind of tie this all in together. So when we think about shows that are kind of like mainstays for us, like stuff that was kind of important to us or left an impact back in the day, those shows have a certain like an evergreen relevance as far as weebs are concerned. Like I'm sure that somebody could still go back and watch Angel Beats today. And, if they were new to it, they would be like totally blown away by it, so it's kind of some of those shows are timeless in a sense. But there's an increasing number of shows. And this kind of goes back to the whole commodity thing that I think we were talking about, maybe even before we started recording. But that are just kind of really like a flash in the pan. They burn really hot. Everybody forgets about them. We move on. And there's like shows even from like maybe a year ago that I was going back through the seasonal charts and I was like, oh, right, that anime is a thing. Like that was something that happened. And part of me like getting into the analog video and the retro media side of things is I've kind of been accidentally bumping into these shows that people just don't remember anymore, if that makes sense. Like there's so many of them out there that I wouldn't say they're bad, but they're not bad enough to like be memorable. Like Garzy's Wing, Mad Bull 34, there's certain shows that like,
Chargeman Ken.
Right? There are certain shows that are so bad, they live on just by their sheer meme potential. But for every one of those, there's probably dozens, if not hundreds, of shows that are just normal kind of regular anime that gradually obscure, just dissolve into obscurity, I suppose would be the case. And I've been kind of spending the last, I've been kind of messing around for the last few years, but I'd say the last like year and a half, I've been making a concerted effort to go back and try to track down some of these shows and archive these weird kind of oddities specifically. I'm not so much concerned about like, archiving all of Ava. Everybody has Ava, or or whatever it happens to be, whether it's Gundam.
Gainax has already archived Ava. They have a release of it where it is literally the original TV broadcast version.
But
available.
But
so it's like
a good example, Lex brought up Tenbatsu Angel Rabbi. Which I thought was a Tenbatsu Angel Rabbi is like this weird one-off OVA that was it was like made as a promotion for an eroge, like a visual novel dating sim back during the 2000s. Really kind of just nothing. Like it's one episode. It's kind of fun. There's the typical action plot with like light fan service. It's kind of a magical girl show. There's like some light sci-fi fantasy elements put in. It's by all accounts it's mediocre at best. But the last time anybody gave a shit about that show, hard subs were still a thing. So if you want to watch it, the only way that you could watch it is at like 240p with these subtitles that are fucking just burnt into the video. And honestly, it's a DVD source. So there's no good reason for it to actually look that bad, apart from just the time period when it was made, because people's hard drives were a lot smaller back then.
Right.
So, and that's what I've been working on recently is just kind of transcribing the hard subs onto a modern encode of that. So like for all 5 people that are going to want to watch that at some point, they'll have a decent version to kind of lean back on. And that was the same thing that led me to do the 1919 OVA capture and kind of remaster that I did. Arissa Good Luck was a big one. Arissa Good Luck, I did that because it pissed me off. And it's kind of weird, like, because Hazel made the video about Arissa Good Luck.
Yeah.
And it was this huge video, lots of time and effort put into it, and she has a really big community. And it just kind of got me that she did something good when she uploaded the DVD files, the raw DVD files onto the Internet Archive. So at that point, people who wanted to do things with it could do whatever they wanted to. But I'm honestly just surprised that, some creators with the audiences that they have and the access to resources that they kind of enjoy don't try to make more of an effort to actually like re-encode or like archive this stuff or make it more accessible to people. Because like, I don't know, like she fully admitted that she didn't really know much about encoding and she didn't know why the video was stuttering all over the place in her video. But it would have been, I feel pretty easy for her to reach out and ask somebody about it. It would have saved me the trouble of having to go out of my way and do it anyways. And I see that stuff happen all the time. It's just kind of like, it gets me. So I just see this and I'm like, why does this look like shit? There's no excuse. This is unacceptable.
Yeah, I think a good example of that was like Action Buttons Tokimeki Memorial 10-hour fucking video on it.
Right.
Where I think that video, either the translation is done or it's still being worked on, but because of that video, there was like a sort of like revitalization and interest in it, and like a translation was like underway as a result, or at least bolstered by it. Maybe it was being translated before that video even came out.
Yeah, I will say that's because people can be kind of critical of like Kenny's like content in our spheres, like people who are kind of more into like the textual analysis and stuff like that, and that is one really like great thing that he does is he's very active in like the preservation kind of side of things, and like he goes out and tries to find these things and preserve them, right?
He hasn't made a video in months, and yet he's doing all this shit with Mickey Momo on Twitter.
Yeah, like he's very active with his community and resources that he has available to him as like a larger creator in doing this good for the community as a whole.
Yeah.
That's definitely like a great thing that he does that I don't think he gets enough credit for from some people. But yeah, that is something that's kind of lost, right, in modern kind of anime spheres, is that kind of, there was a point in time where what was popular was dictated purely by what was available. And what was available was not necessarily dictated by what was popular. Sometimes, like a lot of times it was. Not all of the time. So like you kind of see that a little bit with early streaming. Like obviously a lot of streaming services just push whatever is popular, like Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, that kind of thing, right? But then you would get like a show like a No Game No Life that would get pushed on streaming services. It was really big in the West, much more so than like in Japan.
Yeah.
Not that it was like a flop in Japan, but it made a much larger impact here than it did over there. Same with like Batum. So you kind of get that a little
so
bit.
much. I love Batum so fucking much.
There's kind of a little bit of a carryover with that, but like you look at like early, like even like going into like early broadcast stuff, like it's not like Trigun and Cowboy Bebop were like these huge milestones in Japanese animation, but they kind of almost became that because of how influential they were to Japan, anime coming over from Japan into hitting the mainstream. Going back even further than that, they're kind of like there was a lot of stuff that was popular, like Orange Road, that kind of fell to the wayside from like the kind of larger influence of like a Meison Ikoku. And then there's stuff that was, you know, relatively popular at the time that was popular because of the available translations, like Hime-chan's Ribbon. That was a little bit more popular in that time period just because of its availability. And that's completely kind of forgotten about. So you get like these weird, there's different perspectives, right? That's not necessarily being captured in kind of the modern like way that we consume media. Like I always kind of point to Kyoran Kazoku Niki. That was one that was pretty popular among like Western viewers when it was airing in 2008 or 2009, whatever it was. And by the time I got into anime, it was just like at the tail end of that, right? Like I kind of heard a little bit about people being like, oh yeah, I loved that show. That and like Hyako. Hyako was probably like that time period's Jijebu for those people, where it was like the show that they watched as it was airing that was moderately popular among like certain people, and it kind of tapered off, and eventually like no one really remembers Kyoran Kazoku Niki anymore. Jijebu's probably kind of in a similar situation now, where like people basically forgotten about it like 10 years later. But you're getting less of that, I guess, as like people are kind of progressing in like anime preservation, and like you have so much. I guess it's almost like a two-edged sword, I guess, in a way, where like you're having all these shows that are being preserved and won't get forgotten about, but as a result, the backlog is like massive.
Oh, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. Like
it's like, how do you navigate that?
Coming into a try, and well, that's the thing. That's where like things like AnyTube, I feel, and the cyclical nature of, you know, the topics that we cover, like that's where that's kind of like really useful. It's like, well, you kind of beat the dead horse, especially with like Angel Beats. Like that's been talked about to death. But if a creator you've just started following, you're a new fledgling weeb, and suddenly there's a video about Angel Beats in 2024, it's like, oh my God, what's this? And then you can kind of, you know, you have a curator to kind of guide you along that path. And I feel like the curation side of things, kind of like the same way like a museum will have thousands of artifacts and things sitting in the back room, and only a few hundred of those end up going out on display. And they can kind
That's
of,
a good analogy.
They can organize it, you know, show people a cohesive image, whether that be of a time period or a topic, or for anime specifically like a genre, or even just a mood or a feeling. Like, and that kind of like you can get really deep into the niches, what's her name? She wrote True Tears. She wrote a bunch of melodrama. I know her name.
Mari Okada?
Yes, Mari Okada. Like, you could just have a week-long binge session of Mari Okada's stuff at this point. Like, or even longer. Like, you know, like Gosick, like True Tears, like all of these really great shows if you wanted to just feel brutally depressed, you know. It's like as we move forward, I feel like content like that is going to become a lot more valuable, because there's going to be so much to sort through. The average person isn't really going to be able to know what to parse of it. In that sense, we'll basically all become anime historians, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, like it's interesting you talk about being cyclical, because there was a video that kind of came in my feed recently, which I think it was like a year old. Like it wasn't super old at that point, but it was about Kokoro Connect. And
yeah.
like I was around when it aired. I didn't watch it when it aired, but like I watched it kind of immediately after it aired because it was like a popular show in 2012 for people watching. But they were talking about, like, initially I was like, I saw the thumbnail and the title. I was like, oh God, this is going to be some stupid video about them talking about that stupid masturbation joke and like trying to fucking make it like the anime failed because like some girl was sexual or something. And then I watched it. I was like, oh no, he's just talking about the actor like controversy that happened. I had completely forgotten about it.
Oh right, that was a thing. I forgot about that. I remember watching videos about that and being like, oh my God, that's crazy. I even forget what the controversy specifically was, but I do remember that there was a controversy, and at the time I was really kind of put off by it. I was like, oh my God, my anime, what's happening?
Yeah, it's a huge channel. Oh, okay, I pulled it up. It's Low Art. So he doesn't need the Weeb Crew bump, but I'll shout out the video because it was a good video.
What the fuck are you talking about? He needs the Weeb Crew. Everyone needs the goddamn Weeb Crew bump.
We need to show out Weeb Crew. Let's go.
Oh
my God.
The fuck out of my audio.
Fucking Christ.
Represent.
But it's interesting that we're talking about that, like the curation thing. The threads are being, my almonds are firing, right? The threads are being connected to my synopsis.
The neurons.
Your fucking almonds in your goddamn pants.
The numbers, Mason, what do they mean?
I'm fucking cooking right now, right? Okay, so we can kind of tie, content creation and like this idea of like curation and how it's all cyclical to kind of how it has become difficult to parse through, like, this backlog of anime, right? We're starting to kind of see that with anime content on YouTube, where there is so much fucking anime content on YouTube. There are videos that probably blew up at one point, maybe like 6-7 years ago, that if you search for it, you won't find it until like the third page because of its like relevancy. Like there's so many people that have started trying to make videos and fell off, or did make videos that were popular and they retired. It's what we're looking at, like at least 13 years of like contemporary sort of like anime content. Like obviously before that you had stuff too, and some of that probably carries over, but that's going to be like very early YouTube.
It's like content as we know it right now, like in the format that we're used to, and that people would still want to engage with, at least more than on a curiosity. Like I'd rather flog my own testicles than watch some of YouTube's early videos. Like they're terrible. They're absolutely terrible. I'm not gonna.
There aren't many people who want to engage with like the early, like, dude puts his webcam on the table back in like 2007 and like 360p, where it ends at 9 minutes 59 seconds because of the time fucking.
There's all these deinterlacing errors. Oh, it's a mess.
Yeah, there's like some beeping in the background. There's not a lot of people that want to engage with that.
Yeah.
But even if you just take the quote unquote contemporary kind of stuff, people don't have a full grasp on how much anime content is being uploaded daily.
I'm telling you right now, Mumi, I don't, unless if it wasn't for you anyways, because I know like you're always posting stuff and you're sorting by most recent upload, which is that's more patience than I could ever have. So hats off to you.
The stuff I post is just the stuff I can find, right? That's me being like certain search terms. There's shit that I can't even find. Like we've been working on a project, the Anitube list, right? I don't know if you might have seen it. We might have talked about it a little bit. But if you haven't, this could be your introduction to it.
No. Because I was the one who originally suggested having like the
a website. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that now.
I can't believe you forgot my impacts to this project, and I'm already being I'm going to litigation is what's gonna happen here, Mumi.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I've only spearheaded the idea, so I'm like the Steve Jobs, where I'm like,
you're the ideas
I come up
guy,
on stage,
you know?
Yeah, I'm like, hey, I came up with this idea.
It's honestly a pretty good idea because, like, again, like the curation side of things is important. Like a curation for curators. That's kind of where we're at right now, which is weird. Like,
but like doing that, right? There has been a shit ton of channels that I've found just going through the website casually, and I'm like, holy fuck, I've never heard of this fucking channel. And I'm the one that's like doing this kind of shit to try to find people.
Yeah.
It's just so fucking like bizarre to me. Like how many fucking people are out there, they're like shouting into the void and just the algorithm has ignored them. And it's just fucking weird.
Yeah, and
or
like,
you have
sorry, no, you keep going. You keep going. That's good.
Just keep cooking.
Yeah.
But then you also have like this is like a small point, but you also have like people who are moderately successful that I had never heard of until more recently. Like this Pico the Spicy Warlord. Like I hadn't heard of him until Shabes did a digest on him on fucking his Grumpy G-san video.
No shit.
Like, and he's got 10,000 subs. So I'm like, what the fuck? Or like I think Sai kind of ran into that a little bit with Phenom Sage's content, and he's got like 60,000 subs.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Like, it's just so bizarre, like how many fucking people are out there that we're just not kind of interacting with.
Yeah, and I think too, well, for every creator that you find, there's another 10 that have just kind of died in obscurity. Like you say, like the average life expectancy of a weeb is 6 months. I'd argue the life expectancy of an AniTuber is even less. Like
one video,
like a couple of videos, they don't get any views, and that's it. They never come back.
There is a meme about podcasts specifically where it's like, I think it's like 3 or 4 episodes. Like once you get past that point, you're in like the top 1% of creators that have made it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's basically it. But like, where was I going with that? Yeah, it's like when I first started, when I made the Macross video, I think that was like 7 or 8 years ago. And I was in a Discord group, kind of similar to the one that we're in now. But there were a lot of AniTubers who were just kind of getting their start with things.
Sure.
Out of all of the AniTubers, because we all started, I think I had maybe 100 subscribers. Buddy had 100. Buddy had a couple thousand, and we thought that was huge. Out of everybody in that group, I am the only one still making videos. Like, yeah. So it's like, and all of their videos have just kind of gotten buried under the sands of time. So like, while it's really hard to find some of these older videos, what ends up happening that I've found anyways, if I'm looking for content on an anime, like I recently watched Go Sick for the first time, sure, which aired ages ago. But I wanted to watch some videos analyzing, the plot and kind of how it did things and maybe the direction and stuff like that. Because Mary Okada is my shit and fucking Aoi was the main voice actress. So I was like, man, this is my jam. And the all of the videos that came up were like, it's like glass reflections kind of style videos. And that's just very like kind of not what I'm looking for. The stuff that I actually want is kind of buried under these videos that went viral about a decade ago. And the newer stuff that's coming out, it's like, well, fucking, it's like finding a needle in a haystack at this point. It's like the good stuff I really want. But it's like there's a snowflake's chance in hell I'm actually going to be able to find it.
I guess they kind of act as like a time capsule in a way, right? Because like these are videos that came out when it aired, and like was the immediate kind of reaction to that like the show. So it acts as like this time capsule you can kind of go back and kind of peek into and be like, oh, so this is kind of what the discussion was about that show at the time. Yeah,
and I honestly think that's really valuable from like I guess if I'm coming into something like let's say I'm born today and 20 years from now I'm a weeb and I want to watch something from 2005, but like the world is so different. Like the way that I feel and interpret that media, like this might be completely flabbergasting that these things are happening or that these characters are doing this thing. Like there's no context. I don't have that cultural context because I'm just so far detached. So being able to go back and see how people actually engaged with this stuff, even things like the formats that it was released on, that could influence your kind of engagement with it and how you experience it and how you view it. Somebody who pays money to buy a DVD is going to have a much different experience with something than somebody who pirated it and watched it for free, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Like little things that kind of end up getting lost with time and context.
Yeah, you're more likely, like that is something that's kind of underrated. Like you are more likely to attach yourself to something if you had invested something into it, right? Which I think kind of explains a lot of like the sentiment for shows back in the early 2000s, where you would just buy something and you'd be like, oh, I wonder if this is gonna be any good.
That's what a lot of my collection is.
That's when you would buy something. That was when you would buy something without knowing anything about it. You're just like, oh, this looks kind of cool. Let's see if it's good.
Let's see what this is gonna fucking be. And then you're like, oh, I wasted my money.
Well, so
oh god, this is horseshit.
So my mentality for the curation that I've had up until this point, because I guess at this point I could almost start like a visual museum on the shit that I've managed to collect. Like I have like 500 VHS tapes. I have a couple hundred LaserDiscs at this point. I have a lot of DVDs and Blu-rays. My digital collection is up to 40 terabytes now. I have a pretty comprehensive history of modern anime, like as a whole. But my curation is kind of like, I get it, and then I figure it out afterwards. Like, so all of my VHS tapes, because if you go on Fleabay, you're going to get bent over if you just try to buy, like if you just want to buy anime VHS tapes and you're like looking at individual tapes, somebody's sitting there and they're like, they want $80 for the Atragon
Dragon Ball Z volume 13
super rare, you know, like it's junk. So basically my entire VHS collection is just a bunch of random lots that I bought. And over time, I was able to collect enough of these lots, which had off volumes, to fill out entire sets. And like some of it's been pretty interesting. I've managed to collect all of Bubblegum Crisis 2044 on VHS, and they're all factory sealed. But every single one of those, every single one of those tapes came from different sets that I ended up buying, like lots of 50 tapes, 40 tapes, whatever it was. I managed to collect the entire Martian successor Nadesico, and I've since gone and got that on DVD and Blu-ray. So short of a LaserDisc release, I own the movie on LaserDisc. But once I have LaserDisc, I'll have Martian successor Nadesico on every single visual format it was released in, which is just fucking dope. Like, I don't even know. There's not like a reason for that specifically. I just think it's really cool. And sometimes being able to do something is reason enough to do it. That's my personal mentality with it. For the rest of the stuff, I just find it really interesting finding just random one-off things that nobody cares about. Like,
it's like you literally just go through, what is it? Bai is the Japanese thing that you need to use. It's like
the proxy
service.
service.
Like is just like the thing you need to use to buy stuff off like Yahoo Auctions Japan.
I use something called it's from Japan, or I guess they changed their name to One Map recently. That's my proxy auction service. And I don't know if Bai does this too. It probably does, but From Japan aggregates every single used auction site in Japan into one search engine. So I can search Rakuten, Yahoo Auctions. I don't know. There's a couple of other ones on there, but they all kind of show up. So that's been really useful for me. For me trying to find like specifically the 1919 OVA that I did the capture of and I ripped. It took me 9 months to track down that LaserDisc, and that was it. So it came up on Yahoo Auctions, and it was like $50, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna buy this. And then somebody else bid on it. So somebody else was bidding on it. I didn't know if I was gonna win that auction. I'd been waiting 9 months, and then a second volume of it ended up popping up literally like 2 days later. So I put a bid on that one too. And then I ended up winning both auctions. So I got both of them, but then it turns out that one of them was actually cracked. So I wouldn't have been able to play it, but I had the other one. So
Do you know which one was cracked and which one wasn't?
I think it was the first one that I was bidding on was the fucked up one. So it was a good thing that I decided to double down. Now I guess I just have an extra sleeve for it. But yeah, like that, I would have never been able to find that in Western auction sites.
Oh
if that makes sense. And like as far as I know, my version of it, I guess, for all of its flaws, because I was still kind of figuring out my encoding process.
You've done an updated version since, like, you first did it, right?
So the first version was actually I did an edit of the existing encode.
Okay.
And that was a weird one. So the existing encode
was that an Orphan release?
No, God no. Orphan would have done a better job.
Orphan would have done a better job.
Yeah, no, the original.
I'm not so foolish as to approve all their work.
Yeah, no, Orphan's fucking based. Like, I love their work.
Oh, absolutely.
One of their.
We got brownie points with Orphan, but now whoever did the encode for fucking 1919 originally, it's.
Oh, they're not around anymore, man. That LaserDiscs rip had a fucking IRC channel burned into it, so I'm not too worried. Yeah, like anyway. Oh, fun fact: I actually joined an anime torrenting IRC like last year, and they're still active.
Oh, nice.
And you can still download anime from IRC clients.
That's another thing. Maybe we'll get into this later. Is like IRC old communities.
Man, that's a whole thing. Like, it's super cool.
Going into like have you ever used like any like old like BBS sites?
No.
That's one of my.
Is that where you go
like,
through the IRC and then download the files?
No. Like bulletin board system, like really old websites, basically.
I'm trying to think.
Like.
Okay, we should come back to that.
We'll get into that later.
What was I saying? Yeah. The 1919 rip. So what I did, and I guess I figured this out after the fact, but Japan's standard for analog video is ever so slightly different from North America standards. So it's NTSC-J is what Japan uses. And basically it's
interesting.
Like it's a different the way that they encode the brightness information, I guess not encode because it's analog, but the way that the brightness information is printed onto the media is a little bit higher or a little bit lower. I forget which way it goes. But the existing rip of 1919 had been captured with the NTSC North American standard or assumption. So what ended up happening was like there was this weird gray film over everything. And it was just kind of washing out all of the details. It was really distracting, especially since that OVA is really dark too. There's a lot of nighttime scenes.
Yeah, all these like club scenes and stuff.
So it's like, man, this looks like shit. So I saw that because I think you posted, we were doing it as like a group watch, and then you posted one of the links for it anyways. And I downloaded it in advance and I watched it. I was like, man, this just looks like such dog shit. Like, we can't watch this. Like, this was after I was coming off my high horse from the Arissa Good Luck thing. And what I did is I dragged it into After Effects. I put it into Lumetri color. And then I did color correction on the one. And then I copied the file. I ran the file through like AI upscalers 3 or 4 different times at various resolutions. Using different denoising profiles that were available. This is when I was first getting started out. I didn't really know any better.
You were just kind of like trying to like figure this stuff out, right?
Yeah. And then I crunched it all down back to the base resolution. And then in After Effects, I overlaid it as like this sandwich, essentially. This horrifying, grotesque monster of video. And it actually ended up coming out looking a fair bit better than the original. And that was just due to a lot of the color correction and then oversampling the upscales and then kind of crunching it down and a lot of really aggressive denoising. But I really wasn't happy with that, which is why I spent so long trying to track down the LaserDisc. Moving forward, I think the encode that I'm most proud of is the Dragon's Heaven OVA.
Oh, yeah.
I was able to get that looking pretty. I don't know. I don't want to blow smoke up my own ass because I imagine there's some sweaty encoder out there that's going to be like, actually, and they zoom in to the video. They could probably see all of my dirty secrets and everything that I've done wrong in my life. But I think that looked pretty fucking good, you know? And it's like, so I did a mix of like actual encoding. I ripped metadata files directly from the DVD. I went in, I had Avisynth working at that point. Avisynth is a script-based video encoding software. So you basically write Java synth scripts. And I actually, if I'm on the TV right now, I actually have a screen share as part of my webcam setup. So I can show you what an Avisynth script looks like. This was for Tenbatsu.
Live practical application.
Yeah. So this is for Tenbatsu Angel Rabbit, which I was actually working on transcribing the subtitles earlier. I thought this would be kind of interesting. But this is basically what the anatomy of an Avisynth the Avisynth script ends up looking like. I'll just kind of zoom in on that. Yeah. So in this case, the weirdest thing is that it's a lot easier to, in my opinion, it's a lot easier to capture a LaserDisc raw and then encode that than it is to encode a DVD file. Which is kind of like backwards to the way that you would think it would be, except the issue that I found with DVD files is that even though DVDs are digital, they came out during a time when they still needed to adhere to analog video formats. So they're like this weird middle zone of video. So they have all of the worst parts of digital, all the digital compression, all the bullshit, and then all the worst parts of analog. So like the formatting's weird. The aspect ratio can be fucked up if you don't know how to deal with it. The interlacing is a pain in the ass. The telecine specifically, like I guess the way that it needed to be printed onto a VHS tape, all of that ended up getting transferred into the digital release. So dealing with it properly is a huge headache. And in this case, it involves basically getting a direct video stream of every frame inside of the DVD file. You then end up getting a, where is it? Oh yeah, it's here. It's called a D2V file, but it looks like this. And a D2V file is just a big text file. It's like 20,000 lines. And every single one of these lines is a different frame of video. And then these numbers are like alphanumeric code that are identifying specific attributes of the frame. And Avisynth knows how to deal with and interpret that data so that it can properly process the footage. And that's like kind of the bare minimum that you need to do. There's just, when I first got into it, I think I was like a lot of other people where I thought it was going to be easy. And you
just put the thing in Handbrake and there you go.
Don't even get me started on Handbrake, man. Don't even fucking get me started on Handbrake. Okay, I'm getting started. on it.
There you go.
I've had a few beers so far. I'm having a good time. So I'm sorry if I keep rambling. Just tell me to shut up, and I'll.
No, that's fine.
At any time. But yeah, no. Handbrake has 100 buttons, and they all exist for the sole purpose of fucking you. Okay, that is the only thing. The only thing Handbrake does. It doesn't do anything else. It fucks you. Okay, don't use Handbrake. I don't want to hear anybody ask me about Handbrake again, because ever since I started actually getting decent with encoding, I've been getting a lot of people messaging me on Discord about just random encoding stuff. And every time they open up with like, I'm using Handbrake, I'm having some problems. Can you help me out? I'm like,
where's your first problem?
You're using Handbrake. That's your problem. Yeah, no.
And you're just like, you're using the wrong frame rate. You need to set it to 23 points.
No. It's not even that. It's not even, okay.
Not even that?
Okay, but like the frame rates, man. The frame rates, okay? There's so much wrong with encoding. I feel like it got lost in the sauce. You know how we're talking about like Annie-tubers getting lost to the sands of time? I feel like encoding, like analog media, has become this arcane art form that just nobody.
Can you put something else on the background, by the way? I'm worried about the flashing lights might cause someone
what the fuck is
to
that?
seize while watching this.
That's Galforce. I don't know why. I don't know.
Galforce is a fucking...
Galforce is a trip, I guess. Yeah, sorry. I saw that. It kind of making me look evil there. Yeah, so anyways. Yeah, basically there's a lot going on there. So I don't know if you noticed, but YouTube, other websites, they're inundated with 4K 60 FPS AI upscales.
Yeah.
And that is wrong for so many reasons. And I've had conversations with people about it, and those people are, I don't know, they're huffing paint or something like that because they...
I understand it on one level because I think the 60 FPS thing is a way to avoid copyright. But beyond that,
I don't even know if it does it? I mean, I guess that would make sense.
It might help skirt.
I think you're talking about the interpolated 60 FPS thing.
Yeah. 60 FPS interpolation. Maybe that would get around copyright. I hadn't actually thought about it that way.
Yeah, I think it might skirt YouTube's internal systems, but it looks so bad.
Yeah, the only thing I think about when I see that is just my internal monologues just screaming. With wrath and vitriol. I wish I could just burn it all to the ground in that moment. Because essentially, and what a lot of people don't realize, and I think some of this has to do with the overlap from the retro video gaming community, but anime is not 30 frames per second. It's not 60 frames per second. It's 24 frames per second, or 23.976 if we want to get specific.
Yeah, if you really, and it does matter in some context.
And it's essentially been like, it's a 1990s style of interpolation into 30 frames per second. So it's not native 30 frames per second. And in fact, 30 frames per second doesn't exist because it's interlaced. So it's actually 30 fields per second, which is even worse.
Yeah.
So we have, there's a lot going on there. Or is it 60?
When you talk about like frustration with DVD releases, that's like a big thing when it comes to like, especially early Digipaint shows like Kino no Tabi, Aria.
Oh, it's a huge thing. It's the animation itself is obviously done on twos and stuff, but then the pans and zooms are not only done on ones, but then they are also 30 FPS, and it kills me. Yes, because early DVDs supported variable frame rate video, and that is AIDS. Absolute.
That is it. They were so caught up with asking whether or not they could, they didn't think about whether or not they should.
No, so I love that you brought that up because Tenbatsu Angel Rabbi has that exact same fucking thing. And I can't for the life of me get rid of it. And the weird thing is that like, so it happens with digital pans. So for some of the for some of the pans they did it the normal way, where it'd be 24. And then other ones, they're just like, fuck it, throw it in the blender, 30 frames per second, it's fine. Fucking Buddy has a Macintosh, he can do it.
We've got After Effects now, baby.
Yeah, so like at least I'm sure if I really put the sword to the grindstone, I could fuck around and find out enough to isolate it into Tenbatsu Angel Rabbi. But what I would end up making would be a variable frame rate video, and I don't even think YouTube supports that. If I'm being completely honest, I'd probably end up because I've seen telescened videos on YouTube before, and they look like ass. Like, it's really bad, stuttery all over the fucking place. So like, I don't think YouTube would be able to handle it in the first place. So I'm just going for the lesser of two evils. I'm sending it through a standard IVTC, which is inverse telecine, which is to get rid of those duplicated frames. And then I'm gonna throw it up on YouTube. And from what I can tell too, the original upload or the original encode that has the hard subs also had the same telecine issues. So there's a chance that if I really tried to figure it out, I might just end up running into the same problems that they ended up having. For the time and the effort and what I'm doing, it's kind of a balance, I suppose, where I want to make something that looks good and kind of stands up to the sands of time, as it were.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to waste my entire life just working on one random one-off OVA you know, and then have
and being like, I guess there's like that thing as well where it's like perfectionism versus it being like, okay, who is actually going to notice this?
That is,
I don't know, very specific problem.
So I don't know if you've ever been in any like encoding circles specifically.
I'm active. I'm not, I don't know, active, but I am in like the Kinako video Discord.
I don't actually know about that one, but I mean, I
do know that people get very adept at picking out certain things.
Oh yeah, and like
things that me as a regular viewer am just not noticing. Like there's like people refuse to watch like, when it comes to like seasonal anime, anything like released by a group that will use like H.264, H.265 encoding, just because they don't like the compression on it.
Yeah,
and I don't notice the compression.
That's okay. So there's the thing, though, is that some of that ego is actually like based in ignorance, I suppose. Like the H.264, H.265 thing. Nowadays, we have some pretty good codecs that do really good with but those codecs are specifically tuned for media that we're, you know, consuming today, like Blu-rays.
Right.
And that's where the encoding community has gone. They've all gone to Blu-rays. Nobody gives a shit about DVDs anymore. That's why all of the programs that I'm using are like 20 years old. So, you know, the Blu-ray side of things is a lot different. But what ends up happening is like a lot of people who know a surface level amount about, you know, Blu-ray encoding, they'll kind of try to apply that even strokes across the entire, you know, kind of plethora of media, as it were. When in reality, H.264, even though H.264 is older, you'll actually end up getting better results in it. In my experience, at least, I get better results with H.264 on analog media, because the radio frequency noise that comes off of analog media captures really starts to mess with modern encoding codecs, which are more tuned towards digital compression.
Where you're not going to have to deal with as much noise because it's a Blu-ray.
So if I'm dealing with like later DVD releases, or, you know, I've encoded the occasional Blu-ray, but I kind of try to stay away from that because like I don't really know if there's merit, at least not presently, in doing
is there a market for it when there's other things in the back catalog that probably should be preserved or take like priority?
Exactly. So it's like, but yeah, as far as it goes, like I guess as we move more farther into the future, I think that's going to become a bit more of an issue, where some of this stuff, a lot of this stuff will work. And I think that's the dangerous thing about programs like Handbrake, is that they kind of work. They give you a video, and if you're not ready for it, well, you're going to think that it's pretty good. In reality, all you've done is just fucked up a perfectly good source file. And somebody like me is just going to come along in 5 years and just curl up into a ball, experiencing physical pain, looking at all of it. And
like, no,
encoding. No, I don't think I'm as bad as some people, but the more that I've done it, the more that it's kind of like red pilled me on video as an idea. Like I'll start watching, I still use Crunchyroll, as much of a plebeian as I am for doing that, I guess. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm a masochist. I just like hurting myself. And sometimes I'll be watching a show on Crunchyroll and I'll just be like, who was the fucking idiot in the office the day they decided to upload this? Like, this is unacceptable. There's H.265 blocking everywhere. There's fucking halos. The chroma's bleeding. There's dot crawl. There's pixels
banding
everywhere.
all over this.
Oh my God, the banding. It's awful.
When we watched, this will be relevant for a video coming out soon, or maybe it'll already be out by the time this is done. For Summer of the Gods, we watched it on Netflix.
God help
and
you.
Summer of the Gods is a beautiful movie, but while sitting there watching it, I'm just like, oh, because of the streaming service compression. I was like, oh no. And I guess that's another thing, is like a lot of stuff is being put on streaming services nowadays, and it's not getting a physical release.
Yep, and that's going to be moving forward. Like, I mean, as much as people like to shit on, you know, things like upscaling and these kind of AI denoisers, like, they're a tool, I suppose. So, like, I hate 60K, 60 FPS 4K interpolation channels with a fucking passion. But the program that they're using, I have the programs that they're using. I know how to use them and integrate them into a workflow. And as long as you, I don't know. It's like, you know, it's like drugs. You don't do too many of them, you know, like, I guess, and then you'll be fine.
Please note that the Weeb Crew does not support recreational drug use.
See, there it is, the disclaimer. But it's basically the same thing. It's like they're just pumping it full, and moderation is really key. Moving forward as things become more and more digital, these AI tools are going to be the only way that we can kind of edge out that last little bit, because despite their shortcomings, like they usually over sharpen things, they blow out a lot of details, they kind of mess with the color information in general. But they're really good at removing things like halo and banding in colors. So the smooth gradients end up getting restored as long as you're careful with how you use them.
Just introduces like dithering and stuff.
Yeah, it basically it does a really nice job of dithering things. So you can it's like makeup. It's like makeup for a video, and that's all good encoding really is at the end of the day. If you put shit in, you get shit out. But if you have something that's okay, you know, and you know how to work with it, you can massage it and get it into something that you know you can put on a big screen projector.
Much like makeup, it's all about accenting your natural beauty.
Exactly. I hadn't thought about that.
It's funny. So it's funny we talk about like encoders and like Crunchyroll and stuff, because it rings mine back in like 2014, 2015-ish. There was a kind of an infamous encoder in certain circles named Dies, who did like this big expose on like Crunchyroll, because like they had been like slowly lowering the bandwidth on all their streams.
Yeah, they were.
Even on premium membership.
Yeah, they were.
So it's like you're paying for the best quality, and they were making it actively worse to save money on the back end for like digital. And he learns like he put like, so like people were like, well, why do you not like Crunchyroll? But it's like, because of this kind of shit.
Well,
they're doing
okay, and this is something that, you know, you really only know or think about if you're an anime boomer. But Crunchyroll was basically Kiss Anime back in the day. It started as a pirate website.
The thing not a lot of people talk about is Crunchyroll started off as a goddamn piracy
Dude,
website.
That's how they got enough money to start licensing anime. They literally stole it. They faked it until they could make it. So to hear like, you know, white knights exclaiming the beauty of legal digital streaming and how they support the industry, I guess like a little bit. Like I pay for Crunchyroll
with several asterisks after that statement.
Like I pay for Crunchyroll, but that's just because I can't be fucked to download torrents on my phone. You know?
Like, well, what's funny is like they say that like, oh, it's ethical. Like you're paying for it. It's like, bitch, look at Smuggler's room right now. You think you're spending that kind of money?
Right? Like that's the thing,
Crunchyroll?
Man. That's the thing. I've had people like, I mean, admittedly they don't know me very well, but I've had people be like, oh, I can't believe you're not supporting the industry more. And I am like, motherfucker. Like,
who the fuck do you think you're talking?
Get on my goddamn level, you plebeian. Okay, come.
The fucking industry is built around merchandise. Like it's not built around, you know, you paying the studio. Like that would be great. It would be great if that becomes more of a thing where the studio is able to get more and more money. Sure, but like that's how the industry is kind of structured for the Japanese audience, is them selling merchandise. So if you're buying merchandise, you're like. Whatever. What is it a year now?
Studios themselves, if you look at the data, see very, very little of overseas revenue when it comes to anime.
And honestly,
what is it
like? Well,
what is a Crunchyroll subscription?
Oh, I don't know. I think they bumped it up.
$60 a year.
It's like, I don't know. No, it's like $10 a month for me, or maybe more. I think it's
it's something like $10, $15 a month.
Because I'm paying in Canadian pesos, so it's it's not. Well, it's not
good. We'll say 120. Take that $120. And buy like a couple fucking figures off Ami. You've already supported the industry much more.
Oh man, way more.
Crunchyroll.
One of my figures has done more for the anime industry than the 5 years I've had Crunchyroll Premium.
It's also a thing where it's like, and I don't want to get too political here because this is not a political podcast,
isn't it?
I don't know why I slipped into that voice, but there's also this thing where it's like, does supporting the industry help does it do anything? Because, you're not like, guys, all right, Amazon is mistreating the fuck out of its workers. We need to buy more from Amazon, all right, so they can be paid more. And it's like, that's not...
Okay, so...
That's not how this works.
Well, so kind of bring it all full circle. It's like, well, like anime is art as a commodity. Like it was, it's been purpose built to kind of push stuff as, like it's simply extra marketing material for physical merchandise. And that's one of the reasons that it differs a lot from any sort of Western, European, or even other East Asian types of media. Because usually when you're consuming Western media or, media from around the country or from around the world, the point is the media,
Yeah. I guess they're not making the TV show for Lost. They're not making Lost in order to sell Lost Blu-rays and DVDs or maybe to a certain extent, something like, I guess, comparable would be The Walking Dead. But even then, that's because The Walking Dead is part of this huge media franchise that is kind of unique when it comes to American media.
And The Walking Dead itself was initially created as... at least I think it was. Well, it had some graphic novels that it was based off.
It was a graphic novel series, but the TV show was not created to pump bolster sales in the graphic novel series.
So it was made to support its own weight as a TV show, right? Commercially, as well as critically and creatively.
It's very advertiser driven, commercials and all that sort of thing.
It was only after it blew up they were like, okay, video game time-ins, toys. Fucking everything. Let's
dozens of Facebook games.
Facebook games?
God, the fucking Facebook games back in like 2012.
I don't know what you're talking about. What was the one Facebook game I always played? It was like Empires and Allies or some shit.
Oh, yeah, something
like
along
a
those
Zynga
lines.
game, and I had the biggest base of anybody on my friends list, and I fucked
God,
them all
you
up.
fucking Zoomers.
That's a millennial thing. Zoomers are like playing Snapchat games.
Not even a millennial thing. Facebook games are also for like boomers.
Yeah, Facebook's for boomers now, man. Fucking.
I don't know. I stopped using Facebook around like 2010.
Yeah, I feel like I aged out of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Facebook games to me is like just Farmville. Like that's the only Facebook game I was
Farmville, yeah.
I didn't. No. I think it was Empires and Allies or whatever, but it was like the same time as Farmville. But I thought Farmville was stupid because it was about farming, and Empires and Allies had tanks and stuff. And I thought
that's like Empires, dude. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it was like, or some. Yeah, it was basically Farmville with tanks. It's really stupid. And now I'm just absolutely addicted to World of Warships, and they have a lot of anime crossover events, which always end up emptying my wallet. Which I also think is weird that Can Collet and Arpeggio of Blue Steel are still alive and well on World of Warships. I think that's the staying power of certain like intellectual properties as far as anime concerned has always kind of surprised me. Arpeggio of Blue Steel was never one that I really expected, but like every year, like clockwork, there's another Arpeggio of Steel crossover on World of Warships. And World of Warships, it's not cheap, I guess. Like one of those boats in the game costs about $100 at least.
Oh my God.
Like my WoW's inventory, just because they have so many Weeb crossovers, I think I have like a $2,000 sunk into that game. And that's just in waifu boats. Like I have High School Fleet, Arpeggio of Blue Steel, Azur Lane, Can Collet, all the ship girls, basically, at this point. So
you are the ideal anime consumer. It's funny that we talk about this though, because there's a massive exception to this whole commercialism angle that we've not mentioned, because no one in North America is really conscious of it, and it's the most popular fucking TV anime. Sazae-san has so little in terms of it's never had physical media releases. I don't think it's ever had like any movie tie-ins. All there is really is the manga, which has been out like I don't know if it's out of print, but it's obviously like, Sazae-san is not playing on Japanese TV, getting millions of views every Sunday night to sell the manga like 50 years after it fucking ended. It's interesting to me just because, you talk about anime as like this commercial thing, but then the biggest most popular TV anime that has been on the air since the 1960s, has kind of managed to avoid a lot of the commercialism you see in TV anime. It's very strange, honestly.
Well, I wouldn't be so quick to assume that, because, you know, we're looking at it from our perspective, but like this is a kid's show. I'm assuming this plays like Saturday morning, Sunday morning cartoon block.
No, this plays like Sunday evening.
Okay. Well,
Sunday prime time. There is a thing called Sazae-san syndrome, because it signals the end of the weekend and work and school start again tomorrow. So people just get depressed.
People just watch Sazae-san and they're like, "Oh my god, I have to go back."
Like, "Oh yeah, I gotta go to work tomorrow." Well, it was nice while it lasted.
Unless you work at a black company, then you just never leave work.
You just never leave. But, you know, there's also stuff like, of course, Doraemon is a fucking massive giant when it comes to merchandise. Probably even to like, Shin-chan has like so many fucking movies. Detective Conan is fucking, just all over the place, stuff like that. So, it's not like an exact thing. And of course, One Piece, Precure, Demon Slayer, whenever that's airing, that stuff all also does really well on TV.
But I'd say
Sazae-san is the reigning champ every goddamn week.
Well, I mean, we like from a Western perspective of like collecting merchandise, and even from the Japanese perspective, how we typically view anime. This might be less commercialized, but I'm willing to bet that advertisers will pay a king's ransom to get slots on whatever time slot that this happens to be running in.
That's probably the big thing.
There's probably a lot
one of the
more
biggest advertising blocks.
There's probably a lot of like tie-ins too, like kind of like the old like Astro Boy.
Well, there's an interesting component too, because like the idea of Sazae-san is like basically, I don't know if it's I haven't seen the show, so I'm just going off what I've read. Is like every episode, they'll like visit like a different town or different place in Japan. So part of the scheme then I guess for the TV anime is
the local
you'll have these
boards.
like local municipalities being like, hey, we'll like, pay you to come to have Sazae-san come to our town and maybe boost some tourism.
I always thought that was the weirdest thing. Like out of all of the ways that an anime can make money, it's like, well, we're gonna set this in like rural Hokkaido. For no other reason.
The Seichi Junrei pilgrimages.
And then they'll plaster the anime characters all over their local rail transit and make money that way. I guess
it works because
it works.
The shrine in Chihayafuru is like a pilgrimage spot, and that's not even like that big of a fucking show, right? Or a property. I guess people are bigger in the manga a lot of time. But yeah, it does kind of beg the question, like how they kind of perceive Sazae-san versus how we would perceive like The Simpsons or something.
The Simpsons or Family Guy.
Nobody's trying to go to make a pilgrimage to Springfield. I don't know. Hardcore, the hardcore guys would, I imagine, but for the most part,
I don't know if you were aware of this, but there was a big deal about Springfield. Because they never actually say where Springfield is. And so there were multiple Springfields that were claiming to be the Springfield. And when the Simpsons movie came out, there was an actual like contest or some kind of like, they made this decision of like where the official Springfield was.
Right.
Really? Yeah.
I actually didn't know about that, but that's pretty based. And that movie was amazing too. Like that was probably one of the best Western.
So I'm gonna say everyone says like they don't like it's never been specified where Springfield is, but then I'm just remembering there's a joke in the movie where they specify where fucking Springfield is.
I think that was probably part of it. I think that was like the competition.
That was part of the thing, yeah. Because it's like when they're about to like, spoilers to the fucking Simpsons movie, it's like when they're about to like nuke the town or whatever, and there's a thing where it's like, come visit this crater. It's not where anything like was or used to be. And it's like in like they give like the location when doing that.
What's funny about that is like they used to say it was Springfield, Illinois. Like the people in my life.
Yeah, I always thought it was Illinois.
Like my family and stuff like that. We're like, oh, the Simpsons is based out of Illinois. I'm like, that's kind of cool. And then like when that came up, I was like, wait. They've never actually said where it's based out of.
An interesting example that I was wondering about is like this small like rural town Higurashi is based on. And I was like wondering, do you think because it's a small town, do you think people get annoyed by like fucking like obnoxious otakus like walking around their like their small town and being like just doing weird shit?
Probably.
Maybe. But then I looked it up and it turns out no, they're probably used to it because it's a goddamn World Heritage site.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
So they're already
UNESCO
if anything,
World Heritage
if anything,
site,
this fucking
also
visual novel is like the least of like the like tourism they're getting because it specifically has to do with some of the buildings in the town. They have like a very specific kind of roof or whatever that is like historically important. So it's been declared as like a World Heritage site.
When was it declared as a World Heritage? We don't have to look it up, but I'd be curious. Because it'd be interesting if that's the reason why it was picked specifically.
I don't know. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Like I know the creator, like he was looking like as a civil servant, he was specifically looking for settings and places that kind of embodied rural Japan and kind of
yeah. Well, I guess it's a very
or that feeling.
It's a very picturesque place, and of course, the fucking backgrounds in the original visual novel are just goddamn photographs with a shitty filter over them.
He probably just went there on a trip.
I guess that's the other thing. No one's gonna give you a weird look if you're just walking around taking pictures of stuff because it's already a popular tourist destination.
Yeah, I mean, fuck, you work with what you got, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, I kind of like I really like works like Higurashi. Just like conceptually, I suppose, because they were made by one dude and his family.
Yeah, that's the cute thing about Higurashi is like it's like, oh, it's this like fucked up story and all this. And then it's just like, yeah, his like dad was like helping him ship stuff out. His mom was helping with like online feedback and stuff, and like that is
his mom was like helping print the DVDs for like the original releases and stuff like that. And like his dad was like in charge of marketing and
it's like oh, that's so nice.
Man, I wish my family were that.
My family was that cool.
They could help me with things.
Passions,
they're not going to help me with shit. Who am I kidding?
You're on your own.
It's such a wholesome family experience. Like your dad researching like how long it would take to suffocate children in a school classroom with like exhaust or some shit or whatever the fuck he was doing.
He was like, I don't know. Son asked me to do it, so I didn't ask questions.
I just imagine like some little old man like doing this research on this shit, like going and like asking people, they're like, what the fuck?
That was before people started paying attention to internet searches, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
That was pre-internet watch list.
Well, hell, he might not be able to do like internet search. He might have to actually like go ask people.
Go ask people.
Well, they had computers. I think
this was 2002.
I'm just thinking like this information might not have been like super readily available.
Might not have been online. Yeah.
So
there was a documentary. I think the documentary was just called Otako 2005.
I think I've seen that.
Oh, are you talking about the like? Are you talking about the like Akihabara animals thing?
Yeah.
It's like a nature documentary about Otako. Yeah. Ryukishi's like, in that. It's very funny. But
that is so hilarious because it's like normies go to Akihabara and try to explain what they're seeing.
Yeah, and it's framed. It is framed like a goddamn nature documentary, and it's weird.
But I also love because they get to the Higurashi, they open with like the Higurashi segment, and they frame Higurashi as like this kind of like they don't know what it is.
Yeah,
so I think
really
they think it's like
a
family friendly kind of thing. Like this whole family's pitching in to make this visual novel that features these really cute anime style characters.
The art what's really funny
is like the way they introduce like Higurashi and Ryukishi is they say Dragon Knight 7, creator of the popular sound novel The Cicada Season, and it's like that is such an insane translation of everything. Like it's like, not inaccurate, I guess, but also why would you do that?
I think because it was a French company that produced that.
Okay.
So maybe I'm misremembering because they're like I've always wanted to make this video on the perception of otaku in the normie media, and kind of how we're misrepresented, or like how people kind of like audify us as like these weirdos that kind of, you know, we're not even people. We're creatures that walk around at night and read, you know, hentai manga and all this other stuff. So I always thought it was really interesting. So I have like a whole playlist on YouTube of all of these. Every time I find a cringy otaku documentary, regardless of when it was or who it was made by, I bookmark it, and then eventually I'll go through and do an expose on all the bullshit.
Japanese TV show Densha Otako?
No.
That was like a really popular TV show in like the mid 2000s in Japan. That sort of kind of brought otaku into like, it's analogous to the Big Bang Theory essentially, but for otaku.
That sounds fucking memes.
I mean I like the show. I think it's all right, but it's not as mean spirited, but it does kind of have this sort of like normie perspective when it comes to otaku and otaku culture.
Yeah, it very much is like, just go out and find yourself a girlfriend.
Yeah, literally, yeah. You just go get yourself a real girl.
In the Akihabara documentary, there's this one random dude, God bless him, that poor man. But he's like, they're like, yeah, we want to interview you or whatever. I'm sure they convinced him that this was a good idea. And then he like brings them into his apartment and he shows them his room. And his room looks like this, basically. There's just anime characters everywhere.
Are you talking about it like it's an American guy?
No, it was a Japanese guy.
Okay. And do you know what the one I'm talking about? Like, let me see if I can find it.
I think you're talking about, was it Ken?
I wrote up American. Oh, yeah.
Daniel.
David-kun.
That should have been easy. That should have been easy to fucking remember.
No, I don't know David. I don't know. Or maybe I do, but I don't.
This video is hilarious. That thumbnail, oh my god.
Oh, this thumbnail, 240p AVI.
AVI, baby. Man, let's go. This is an old-ass fucking video.
I don't know if I... Do I
Base Kubo subs in the title of the video. This video is 10 years old.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so David is like one of the earlier... Which he's not like one of the first, obviously, right? Like, even in Otaku no Video, you have the Westerner who's There is an American guy. There's a guy speaking English who they then overdub in Japanese, but then you have to read the English subtitles. That part gives me a fucking like migraine. Like lives in a fucking van.
It's some weird. I don't know. I think it was Otaku 2005, but it was made by a French company, but it was dubbed in English. So there was but they were translating from Japanese. So it went from Japanese to French to English.
Oh my god.
There's like some sentences where it's kind of like you're hearing English, but it's not words that make sense.
Yeah,
it's just kind of like, or like things that sound awfully condescending, I suppose, or like weirdly framed like questions that don't quite make sense because the direct translation from French to English just doesn't really jive well, I guess, depending on the formatting. And I think that's one of the reasons why that documentary rubbed me the wrong way. Because it's very like, it's looking at like our interests and kind of dehumanizing us based on.
Again, the fact that it's framed as a nature documentary does rub me the wrong way.
Right. And like that one scene where the guy brings them into his apartment and then there's all these anime girls plastered on the wall. And then the one interviewer is basically like, these girls are really young, aren't they? Like, you know, and she keeps like, they keep edging him, like trying to get him to out himself as a pedo or whatever.
There's a fucking BBC documentary that's very similar to that a lot of people fucking gave shit.
I think I've seen that one as well.
Yeah, that one sucks.
And it's just like, what's the angle here? Like, what are you really trying to do? Are you just trying to like be like, oh, look at these fucking weird perverts, they're walking among us?
Yeah,
you know, like death to the weebs.
Have you seen Enter the Anime?
Yes. God, that fucking shit, man.
Oh god,
fuck that was the most patronizing fucking horseshit I have ever seen. I don't think I've ever been that angered.
I watched it. I watched it with Gil once. He had not seen it before, and we got to the part where, you know, it's all these people working in the anime industry, And they're all talking about like how, if what do they want? And they're just like, I wish I had more time to sleep and stuff like that. And then the fucking host is just like, hamsters, that's my backup plan. And I think Gil screamed at that point because it pissed him off so much. To take this very like serious, like pensive moment, and to then undercut it with a really not even a good joke, a really bad joke
in bad taste, no less. It's like so, these people are overworked.
Yeah, fuck that documentary.
Like, hamsters can run on wheels forever.
There's some interesting stuff with like the people they're talking to, but I don't know. They're trying to present like Seiji Kishi, like the director of like Tsukigahime, not Tsukigahime.
Manny Has Declined.
Yeah, just like Yuki Yuna, all of these like cute girl shows, and they're trying to present him as some like metalhead buff badass.
Yeah,
and it's like,
I remember
that's really
that.
weird.
Like, anime, well, and I remember there was a couple of examples. Well, so the thing is about that documentary, because that was a Netflix original.
That was a Netflix commercial for their original anime.
Yeah, and that was the thing. So I'm pretty sure like in the script there was a stipulation that they were only allowed to use Netflix anime.
They talked with the woman who's saying like the Evangelion opening, because Evangelion had just released on Netflix.
But they didn't show any of actual Eva because they got the rights for the song and to talk to the singer, but they didn't have the rights to clear any footage from the anime. So you just ended up staring at the singer for like 5 minutes, and then her opening, like the opening Eva song, just played on repeat for like 8 minutes during that section, like a true travesty. Really, for documentary filmmaking.
Like, there's like so many baffling editing decisions and stuff that is just like completely boggles the damn mind. It's something you I actually don't even want to say you need to see it to believe it. Don't watch it. It's not good.
Yeah.
No, I think the main issue is that like well, for one, the person who was making it and the people who would write it didn't have the first fucking clue.
It really seemed like it was just a paid a vacation to Japan, where in order to finance their vacation, they also just shot a documentary over a couple days.
Right? Like, and when I was watching that, I think the worst part about me watching that was like, I'm pretty sure if I spent enough time, I could definitely make something better. Like, I was kind of just like, I was watching it like, and like, I mean, even just from an editing standpoint.
Yeah.
Like, if I really give a shit about something.
Give me the raw files. Yeah.
And like, recut it into something that's not so schizophrenic and like patronizing, I guess. It would have turned out a lot better. And then two, like, I think she was definitely ill-equipped for what it was, because she was like, anime is this weird and fucked up thing.
Yeah, there's that whole thing where it's like, Japan is such a polite society, but anime fans are crazy. And it's
and it was like, Baki the Grappler, whoa, that's insane. And I was like, really? Baki?
Meanwhile, UFC's taken off in the West.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I'm like, man, like, it's like, motherfuckers, like, I will drive there and give you my Legend of the Overfiend tapes. Okay. And then we will talk about how fucked up anime really is.
We watched Legend of the Overfiend the other you were there, right?
Yeah, I was there. I was like, man, this is so nostalgic. I was like, I love it. I love watching Legend of the Overfiend.
If you can get your hands, by the way, on a better and make a better release of Overfiend, by the way, because the one we were watching was so crusty.
Well, the thing is there's a bit of an issue with Legend of the Overfiend releases, and that's because there's so many of them, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I have the Legend of the Overfiend Perfect collection, like the box set on VHS. And I don't think that that's actually available anywhere, because all of the versions that at least I was able to find online were the movie version.
Yeah, there's a Blu-ray release of the movie version, which is about 45 minutes shorter.
Yeah.
Than like the OVA. So it's like they're cutting out stuff, and I don't know if they're probably cutting out the wrong things, if you know what I mean.
But like, so I have the Perfect collection. I have Inferno Road. I have like Legend of the Overfiend, the original. I have Birth of the Demon Womb, which I think is volume 2. I have like Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Just the name Birth of the Demon. Oh, that's so fucking funny.
Well, so back when I was because I've kind of moved away from collecting VHS tapes just because it's it's getting out of season, I guess. Like the tapes are getting older.
I feel like there has been like a greater interest in LaserDiscs as of late, maybe just like the past couple of years.
Well, LaserDiscs, for lack of a better term, stay fresh.
Yeah.
At least the good ones do. Whereas my tapes, there's nothing like after a certain point, like I can only do so much with climate control and proper caretaking to keep those tapes watchable for so long. Eventually, they'll be, I'd say probably in the next 20 or 30 years, there won't be a single tape I own that will actually be watchable. Whereas if I'm lucky and the seals on the LaserDiscs hold up, well, they could, in theory, last maybe another 50, maybe another 80, probably till the end of my lifetime. So as long as I still have something that can play them, which is a whole other issue.
That's the main thing with LaserDiscs is getting something to play them.
Well, I have I have 3 players. 2 of them work, you know, kind of. But
I don't even have, I own some LaserDiscs. I still need to get a damn player because I guess that's the other thing with like LaserDiscs is like, do I get the player first and not have anything to fucking play it on? Or do I get the media first and then not have anything to play the media on?
Yeah, I've thought about buying LaserDiscs just to own like the art. Like
they're nice to display.
Yeah.
Okay. So I actually busted this out from, I'll hold it up in front of the camera if you guys are watching.
I feel like we're Space Ghost Coast to Coast right now. Like we just have like the fucking the guests on the video.
So I got this.
Wait. Is that a complete release of Sazae-san on LaserDisc?
Yeah, so I have the
there's two. God, how much does that fucking thing weigh?
It's about I think because it's about a pound a disc, so this is about 25 pounds.
Oh Lord.
Ish. I'll turn off the
just turn off the obnoxious stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and then so this is there's another box that looks exactly like this that has the other 25 discs in it. But yeah, this is her. And all of them have their own unique set of like cover art. Like that. So I was thinking about like scanning some of this stuff. They all have like inserts and like kind of cool little extras that are shoved in there. The box itself is honestly really impressive. And some of them have like their own OBIs, that like have I don't know, general information on the episode or kind of like, you know, interviews, like text interviews with the voice actors.
Okay.
For Gal Force, which was the LaserDisc that I was playing, it was actually factory sealed when I opened it the other day.
Oh wow.
Kind of neat, but the OBI.
And now you've touched them with your bare hands, and it is worthless.
Well, fuck it. You know, at the end of the day, I'm doing this for me. You know, if I was worried about the money, I would be doing something. I would buy a house.
There are better hobbies.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, like that's the thing.
I would be putting my money into a 401k.
Right? Like that's the thing that always kind of got me was like, you know, people are like, oh, that collection's worth a lot of money, huh? And I'm like, well, yeah, kind of to the right people sometimes.
But it's like
there's a weird like kind of dichotomy with this, right? Because like there's the people who are like almost like grifters who are basically kind of like lying to people like, oh, my collection is worth $10,000. Like this fucking thing is worth X amount. It's like, you could probably get that if you list it on eBay for 3 years and someone might eventually buy that thing for that price. But like, that's not how this really works. Like the value of that thing is not determined by what you paid for it or like the highest priced thing that you've seen listed on eBay. It is determined by how much people are wanting to pay for it, right?
Exactly.
So it's like
that's the thing.
People like try to like almost grift that this is like, you get the people who grift that this is almost like a thing that you can actually make money on, and then you get the people who are like out of touch with it, who are like, oh, you shouldn't waste your money on that shit. It's like, well, those people in the former example are like wrong. Like you don't fucking buy this shit as an investment. It's not that it's a complete waste of money. Like when I started getting the shit, like I kind of thought of it as a little bit of waste of money. I was like, oh, well, I'll just waste some money here and there or whatever. But it does retain its value pretty well. And sometimes it actually does go up in value, right? Mm-hmm. Like just an example, my whole like part 5 JoJo display I bought all those figures used in like really great condition, because that's the used figure market in Japan is like amazing as far as like value for what you're getting. So I bought them all used for around like $30-ish a piece on average. On average now, like since they've remade the figures and like done reissues of them, they're selling on average for like $60.
Yeah.
And that's not including the ones that are kind of a little bit harder to find since the anime came out, and they've gone up in value for that reason, that are like sometimes upwards of like 120. So it's like you can make money doing this or like collecting this stuff, but it's not like that's not the investment. That's not the point of what you're supposed to be doing.
If I didn't like this, I wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
Like it doesn't make sense necessarily as an investment, but it also like you can't look at it cynically, I suppose.
Right.
You have to just, enjoy it for what it is, whether or not it's worthless or if it's worth money. That Urusei Yatsura box set is one of those things where like Urusei Yatsura recently got a re-release, and it's rebroadcasting. So a lot of people have been brought into it. I picked that up before the new release was announced. So like if I turn around and sell that, like that'll be worth some money.
Yeah.
But if I came at every single thing I had with that same attitude, well, I'd be pretty miserable, because a lot of the stuff that I have, while in a vacuum, it would be worth absurd amounts. It would also take an absurd amount of time to find somebody who would want to pay for it.
Right.
It's an oddly specific thing.
It's almost like approaching your hobby like those like drip check videos. Do you know what those are?
No,
where you like walk up to someone on the street and ask them how much the clothes on them are worth.
Oh yeah, I've seen some of those. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the mentality that almost kind of ruined like the retro game market, right? Everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, they all saw like the people were going and like buying these games and then like flipping them for like double their money, and so everyone's like, well, I can go get like $60 for what they had, like the fucking famous example of the stupid Pawn Star episode with the NES with like, oh, this is the original so and such NES. You can tell by the serial number it's worth like $500,000, whatever the fuck they fucking said. It's like, what the fuck are y'all talking?
Oh, that's so embarrassing. Like, you can fucking get a Nintendo Entertainment System for like a fucking Klondike bar.
Well, like I have some retro gaming stuff as well. I don't really talk about it so much. Like actually, maybe that'd be a video worth making some, because I have a Sega Genesis, and I have some of the original Sega Game Gears, and I know how much you guys love Isekai Oji-san. So I thought you guys would get a kick out of that.
The Wonder Sword.
Yeah. I really but what got me, Isekai Oji-san mentioned one thing that I was like, holy shit, because in one episode it's mentioned in passing the TV tuner card for a Sega Game Gear. So and I've seen them, and I was considering buying them. They're pretty expensive and oddly niche, and it's going to be one of those things where I have to like put my wallet where my mouth is. But
you just have to make a video on it to justify the purchase.
Exactly. And that's why all my videos take 6 months, because I spend 5 months convincing myself to spend this money and then a month making the video. So, but yeah, because I actually, as part of this like weird video loop setup I have, some of it's actually like able to run wireless. Like I have wireless video transmission systems and like RF tuners kind of hooked up. So it's one of those things where I could set up my own TV station in my house and then tune into it on my Sega Game Gear. And that, to me, is the coolest fucking thing ever, for no apparent reason other than the fact that I could do it.
That sounds like a one-way ticket to getting in trouble with like the Canadian equivalent of the FCC.
Well, it's a CRTC, but
CRTC.
The RF tuners that I have are below the power limits. I've kind of looked into it. But I'm going to be looking at getting my amateur radio license once I get finished with my move, and that's going to let me do stuff with. I don't know if you've seen some of the chats that I've had about SSTV transmissions.
I've seen a couple that you've had in there.
Yeah, so like SSTV is what NASA originally used back in the 60s to send images from the moon. And you can build an SSTV system using modern day computers fairly easily.
Sure.
And there are ways and people and various things that you can do to bounce radio transmissions off of the moon.
Interesting.
So the SSTV transmission standard is a way to send images over radio frequencies and then receive them. But it takes a really long time. There's about 90 seconds that's required of continuous transmission because it draws the image line by line using radio frequencies.
Right.
I know enough about radio theory now that I'm in a position, it's kind of dangerous. Like I know enough to kind of cause myself some trouble. So I need to get an amateur radio license and do everything legitimately so that I don't end up going to jail. But I really want to try bouncing like a manga panel off the moon. As just stupid as that would be. That
sounds almost like a Mr. Beast video, honestly.
I kind of like, I really like I don't like Mr. Beast's videos, but I like what he does, as weird as that sounds. Like I love the fact that he's always
concept, basically.
And he's always kind of like one-upping himself. So and that's kind of the way I feel with my videos, at least, minus even my encodes, I guess. Like I always try to make the next one I'm doing a little bit better than the last one. And like even if I don't post very often, I at least try to keep pushing the envelope, I guess, and use what I have already to kind of build on that.
I feel like that could be a like you have like your face in the corner, like looking in like shock and awe, and there's just like a big thing at the moon, and it's like I bounced the manga off the moon.
Right, and then it's just like Power's disgusted face staring down at me from the moon or something like that, like off a chainsaw.
The video just opens up with you trying to throw like a book, like a manga, like at the moon in the middle of the night.
This isn't working.
There has to be a better way.
And then it goes black and white, and I spill my manga panels all over me. Yeah. No, that's not a bad one.
Has this happened to you?
I spent $10,000 to bounce the chainsaw manga off the moon.
See, you joke, but it probably would work out to about that by the time I'm all done.
God.
I already see. The thing is that like I'm in a pretty unique position. For one, I have a decent a job that pays me a decent amount of money. And two, helps. Like I just have all of these like oddly specific interests, but they all end up kind of overlapping. So I feel like I've always been more technically minded. While I really like literary theory and sociology and psychology and the I guess the more abstract concepts, like breaking down anime for its themes and its narratives and stuff like that. That's never been something that I've gravitated to. I'm just
not really your forte. Yeah,
I can do it. Like I've written videos that kind of attempt to do that.
You're more interested in like the medium itself rather than the content of the medium, I guess.
I guess more concrete things, like more technical stuff. I'm always much more interested in like the economics of anime than I am the individual creators. And that's kind of something that I tried to address in my like hentai history video, because I found a lot when I was doing research for that video. I found a lot of videos that talked about directors and animators in the industry, but I couldn't for the life of me find a video that talked about, how the economics of hentai changed and how government censorship regulations actually affected adult media throughout the 90s and the 2000s. What the internet did to hentai, like the actual concrete things that happened. All I found was a bunch of people sitting around nutting about how great the director of Legend of the Overfiend was. And that's great. Like, I like those videos, but also like fucking where's the give me the cake. I want the shit. Like the real, the paper. Where is it? And I think part of that, I was reading there was this white paper, I guess like a graduate like sociology student wrote his thesis on the way that anime creators, specifically like AniTubers, focus on the creative staff inside of the industry over anything else, and how that relates to their own empathization with those creators, because the people who are making videos and scripting and writing are inherently creative people, whereas people who are more technically minded or business oriented are in other areas. They're not considering, media and kind of the way that it goes. And that's why anime economics, I guess, or like, the general technology that kind of enables all of these movements to occur is kind of a black hole of information. You can't really find a lot on it. Like, I don't know, even just weird stuff. Like there's all of these like I'm really into like Vocaloid music. Like I listen to a lot of Vocaloid music.
Sure.
And I'm always watching lyric music videos, like Vocaloid lyric music videos. And there is a single Japanese program called AVI UTL, or like AVI Utility, that has made like 90% of these videos. I always assumed that they were made in After Effects, but they were actually made on a Japanese specific program that only very recently got an English translation. So I spent a bit of time fucking around with that, and I made my own AMV with it. And I thought that was really neat, because that's the technology that's kind of driving the whole niche of like Vocaloid music videos. But I just never heard of it until I was watching some Google translated tutorial video on it. And I was like, man, this is like the coolest shit ever. It's basically free Adobe After Effects, except it needs to be an AVI file. So
it's interesting because I've kind of talked about this here recently, because it kind of came up where this is why I kind of approach content creation the way I do, where it's very very much a collaborative sort of effort, because like I'm focused on like creating the best kind of thing I can think to create, and like kind of capture different facets and different kind of perspectives than I can even capture on my own, right? So the best way to kind of go about that is not necessarily just doing a ton of research and like trying to present someone else's perspective through like your lens, but just kind of bringing them on and just be like, hey, you kind of enjoy this kind of aspect of media. This is how you engage with it. So, you can kind of speak to it better than I can, and we can bring you on and make a collaborative effort kind of thing. Like that's kind of how I've approached not only like content creation, but like media consumption in general. That's why I appreciate being able to watch someone else's content and get their perspective and like what they kind of are geared toward, and add that and augment my own appreciation for that thing through their perspective. I appreciate that there are people who look at things so completely differently than I do, and are able to be like, oh, let's look at I don't know, what's some weird fucking like I think recently I've seen a channel almost completely dedicated to girls und Panzer. And they're like going through the tanks and like the weapons usage. Dude. And like
like, Girls und Panzer fans are nuts. I love those guys.
And it's not even just Girls und Panzer, right? Like it's people come at from all different kinds of angles. Like you said, you're coming at it from the media kind of perspective of like what kind of media it's like circulated on and distributed through, and how you're kind of consuming it in that way, and even like the time period in which you're kind of consuming it and what the mentality would be in that time frame. Because like there are so many different facets that people kind of don't necessarily think about when they think in like a general sense of like AniTube, right? AniTube has very much just been defined as like video essays or comedy videos, and it's like, yeah, those are good. Like it's not,
that's your bread and butter, right? But
right.
Like you want some spice every once in a while.
It's just so much more multifaceted than people kind of really give it credit for. So it's very much something that's kind of more prevalent doing the things I've been doing here recently, where you're like, damn, there are people doing this kind of shit.
Well, I think a lot of it kind of comes down to like, because your ideas, like, I guess, I don't know, like from like my base level knowledge on psychology, but the way that you formulate ideas is based on your previous experiences and your influences.
Right.
So if somebody's coming at, AniTube specifically with a shallow depth of influences and experiences personally, then their ideas are going to be much more derivative. That's why we're inundated with video essays. It's because, well, the video essays are popular, and not only that, but they're cheap to make. You don't need any money to do them. A talking head video, like a talking head video is comparatively much more expensive and difficult to do compared to just editing anime clips together and voicing it over. So that's why we have such that's why anime related content is so homogenous. It's because of that low barrier to entry.
Right.
You go on Kiss Anime, you fire up OBS, you record your clips. You
don't do any of these things, by the way.
Yeah. You hope to God nobody sees the watermark, and then you full send. Okay, you just intellectually nut your profound opinions all over YouTube, and then everybody will love you and tell you about how smart you are. And then that's it. The rest is gravy. Then you're making the money, as they would say. At least that's my perspective on it. But what I was kind of thinking is like I want to try, like, when I get into my new place, I'll kind of have a bit of a studio set up so I can actually kind of green screen this, kind of like blow this out and kind of start developing like a Nakey Jakey kind of thing. I don't know, like,
you actually start streaming, but you're just not streaming on Twitch, but just over radio, like over TV frequency,
over radio waves.
Yeah, it's just UHF at that point.
Yeah. Tune in your aerial to channel 48, guys. I'm fucking live, 8 p.m. Eastern.